3, 2, 1. All right, here we go. Another edition of Inside Fitness Radio. I am your host, Terry Frendo, and today's guest is a very special one, Aaron Singerman from Redcon1. Aaron, how's it going?
Great. Thank you so much, Terry, for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
And today we have Costa on, who's going to be co-hosting. He's a supplement guy. Costa, how's it going?
Terry. I'm good. Ready to go. It's a big show today.
I like your virtual background there. You put the logo up.
Yeah, representing.
He did have a Redcon1 logo up, though, earlier, Aaron.
I did.
Okay, good. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, I appreciate the time and you making the time to come on here and all that. And being in the industry as long as both of us have, I've got a lot of questions for you. And I kind of want to start off with, where you came from, you know what I mean? And how it all started for you in the beginning, the early days.
Sure. Well, I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I am 40 years old now. So I started getting interested in sports supplements in general when I was 13. I was 13 and instead of going home after school, I would have them drop me off at the gym, French Riviera Spa, right by my house, about a mile. And I'd work out for an hour and a half, 2 hours, try to figure out what to do. And then when I was done, I'd walk home. And since then, I thought the magic, stuff was the Metrex packets.
Yeah.
Back then it wasn't even the Metrex, it was the metamycin, and you would mix them together yourself. I figured that was going to be the secrets that would get me huge and ripped. And so I really was fascinated with sports supplements from that age on. And my early years of my life was misspent, I would say, on drugs. I was very lost for a large majority of my life up until my later 20s.
Really?
And so I literally spent, about 7 years addicted to heroin and cocaine and just a mess. And when I finally was able to get out of that life, I thought to myself, what is it that I'm passionate about? What do I love? And I could only come up with one thing. It was bodybuilding. And obviously genetics plays a very large role in bodybuilding. Yeah. And by nature, I'm a tall, skinny Jewish kid. And genetics were not on my side, to say the least. So instead of looking at and being inspired by Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman and those guys, I was inspired by Joe Weider, Ben Weider, Steve Bleckman at the time, Steve Bleckman still, and guys like Peter McGough and a lot of other people that were important to me, because I was looking at it from what can I do in bodybuilding where I don't need great genetics, And so I basically went after that full force. I spent every day, all day long, that I wasn't working to pay the bills as a personal trainer, trying to figure out how to break into the sports industry, the bodybuilding and fitness industry specifically.
Yeah.
And I got my first real break. I would write articles and I would send them into Robert Kennedy, send them to Peter McGough, to Joe Weider, to all the magazines, everybody. And they would not run them. I would do it for free, and they would probably, I don't know where these all went, but they would toss them out or whatever. But I would just kept trying and trying. I was posting on bulletin boards that were really popular back in the day using my real name. And that sounds like not that crazy to people these days with Facebook, but at the time, everybody used, a nickname, a handle, Swole Gun 69 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would post trying to get attention. And finally, one day, I got one of the podcasts where I would email. So Dan Solomon did one, Larry Pepe did one, and all these people. I would email them after the show, trying to get them to pay attention, basically. And so one of the ones that I loved was called Superhuman Radio, and it still exists. Carl Lenore is the host. And instead of giving him a compliment, which is usually the way that I would go, trying to make them like me, I gave him a critique. And I told him that I couldn't believe he was advertising this thing that I thought was bullshit. And that actually got him to write me back. And we ended up getting on a phone call. And that phone call led to him giving me a chance to interview him for the first time on his own show. So he'd never been interviewed. At the time, he had done like 300 or 400 episodes and never really spoke about himself. So I interviewed him and I prepared for that interview like it was like it was the opportunity of a lifetime. And I did such a good job that he said, you have a great radio voice. Have you ever done this before? Do you have experience? And I said, no. He goes, well, do you want to do another show? Is you interested in doing one? So we did a show called Off Topic Radio. We did 300 hours of radio together. And that opportunity led me to work for Dave Palumbo at RX Muscle. And I worked for Dave and went from being, kind of like just one of the guys that he worked with, well, really hosting that show on his site. But one of the guys worked with him to eventually replacing John Romano when he left the industry.
Yeah.
And then eventually I became the editor-in-chief of the site, working with Dave. And then when I left that, all in that period of time, I started focusing on what else could be done. How else could I generate revenue and money? Because my wife got pregnant, and I realized that the money that I was making with Dave, while it was great, and I was able to pay the bills, and I never imagined being able to follow my passion and make money, I realized that it's not going to be enough money to support a growing family. And so that was really the foray into trying to figure out what else could I do in bodybuilding and fitness to make money. And I loved supplements, so it was a natural evolution. And I worked for a company called Iron Mag Labs as their marketing director. And then I started Blackstone Labs with my best friend at the time, PJ Braun. Yeah. And along the way, I started a whole bunch of other companies. I did Dana and Rob with Dana and Rob Bailey. We did Run Everything Labs with Kai Green. I did Dynamic Muscle with CT Fletcher. I did one. And I did Prime Nutrition. And it all kind of led up to all of the lessons and the successes led up to Redcon1. We were very honest. Eric Hart, who I know you know also, Terry, started with me at Blackstone and then switched over when we started Redcon. And we were honest. He had 13 years experience at Glambia and BSN. And I had all this experience from the different companies in Blackstone. We said, okay, what do we know didn't work? What do we want to do differently? We were honest about those failures. And then we also knew what succeeded. And we really scaled the things that we knew were going to work or that worked before. And we put all that into starting Redcon1, which is now the fastest growing sports supplement company in history.
Yeah, no, it's truly amazing. You know, Aaron, I deal with a lot of different sports brands. I mean, not just here in Canada, but all over the world. And I've been doing this for almost over 20 years. And currently in the last couple of years, there's two brands that people always try to compare themselves to or bring up. And I'll tell you, obviously, one of them is Ghost and the other one is Redcon1. And I get this question all the time. And there's some legacy brands out there who are trying to copy or trying to, maybe not copy, but mimic what you're doing. Sure. What do you think makes you so different than all the other brands that have been around? Sure.
I think there's a few major things. I think number one, I think that when Eric and I started Redcon1, we wanted to be a real brand, iconic, long-lasting brand. And so we sat down and came up with a brand book and decided who we wanted to be, what was our message, who we were going to try to market towards, and we also knew we wanted to be purpose-driven. That it couldn't just be some other bullshit where we have some cool-looking products and try to make money. It needed to be meaningful and purpose-driven. So that's why we went in the direction of the military. So for me and for Eric too, my grandfather fought World War II. Both grandfathers fought World War II. And one Korea, one World War II. And I grew up as a kid looking at his uniform and thinking about that one day I would be doing the same thing. And he fought in Normandy, on the beach in Normandy, and he was one of the only Jewish officers to fight in Normandy and also liberate all of the he was at Auschwitz and Dachau, and so he actually liberated those camps. So
you're a history guy, eh?
Yeah, I'm a history guy for sure.
Yeah,
and so I loved that, and I always thought that would be me. Unfortunately, instead of serving my country, I ended up doing drugs for years. So it's something that I always respected. And right when Redcon1 started, I made friends with and met two Navy SEALs, Ryan Bates and Brandon Cruz. And I thought, man, these guys are super cool. They are charismatic. They're in great shape. And at this point in time, even today, with all the craziness that's going on in these days, I think that this is a time where everybody, whether you're left or right, can at least respect the dedication of people like these two gentlemen. So we took all that and created something that's truly unique. So when people like Redcon1, they may not love this supplement or this product. We're not a brand. We're a brand, not a product centric or ingredient centric company. We have a whole real legit brand. And I always wanted, when you see the Redcon1 or see the Shield or Chevron or the RC1, that it would be something easily recognizable. And that's why having a name Redcon1 being meaningful, it means the highest state of military preparedness. So it applies to everybody who doesn't want to be at the highest state of readiness. Soccer mom, a Navy SEAL, Mr. Olympia, they all want to be at the highest state of readiness. So we have a brand that could be widely appreciated and not like other brands that I've been associated with before, where it's very niche, right? And it really wouldn't have had the chance. So we're sold in all forward operating bases, exchanges all over all over the world in 88 countries and, 50,000 plus doors.
Aaron, but why? What's the difference? I mean, what's the difference between what you're doing and some of the other guys that have been around? Because you're, eating some of their lunches, I would imagine, right?
I think, to distill it down into very simple terms, it's the marketing. Marketing is the reason why. So the products are great, right? But there are other people with great products too. So
of course, yeah.
The marketing, the things that we do in the brand building is, I think, what makes Redcon1 stand out, from the look and feel of the product, the label and everything, from that all the way to what athletes we're bringing on board, how we're showing the athletes, the amount of content that we do on a daily basis, the amount of what people see, and I think a lot of it too is the fact that we have so many brand ambassadors in our operator program, and so many T-shirts that are being worn all over the world. So a lot of it has been a buildup, but all the buildup, the drive and the demand is built with the marketing, right?
Yeah, I sorry, go ahead, Costa.
Yeah, a couple of questions. You touched on some of your ambassadors and your athletes. Like, it's a really impressive lineup. A couple of them that I'm really big fans of. Just want to know if you have any personal stories about them. Like, one of them being obviously Braun Strowman. He's a big beast. And the other one was a really big fan of, unfortunately lost tragically, Luke Sandow. Just wonder if you have any stories you can tell about them, anything to talk about.
Sure.
Them,
Absolutely. So Adam Shearer, who's Braun, right? He is a fan of the brand. And so he has been getting products. We've been sending him products. He was buying products, and has been a fan of the brand since almost the very beginning. And so the fact he's come to visit back years ago, he came to visit. I have never been back in the 80s, I was a wrestling fan, maybe early 90s, but once the guys stopped being all jacked, I lost a lot of interest in wrestling. But I knew he was a big deal. And when he came and visited, he was so nice and everything. And so all of that kind of led up into about 6 months ago or something. He was reaching out for products or something, and it kind of popped up in my head. We need somebody new. I would love to get involved on a deeper level with somebody that I already like, that it was very popular. He hadn't become the WWE champion yet, but he was getting more attention and his following was big. And he's one of the very rare wrestlers that owns his own likeness. So he owns his own social media. That's why it'll say Adam Shearer instead of Braun Strowman. So he can, all that social media, he controls it. Whereas the WWE, most of them, they are not able to do what they want.
They don't own their name.
Yeah, exactly. So I reached out to him and we were able to make a deal, and he's been fantastic. He's obviously great in front of the camera. He lives in Orlando, and because of the coronavirus, he's available all the time. He's going to be here tomorrow morning, and he'll be here all weekend. We have an event at the gym. So he's always available. He wants to do content. He has fun. He likes a lot of people on the team, and he's been great. He's only been with us officially for 3 months, but he's been fantastic. And in terms of funny stories, I mean, he can eat a lot, and he doesn't mind having a few drinks either. So we went out to restaurants and he's put down some serious steaks. But then Luke, on the other side, very sad, very, very sad story. Luke was, he had such a great personality. He was such a hard worker. I mean, so one thing I've found with all the athletes we've had is just because they act one way on social media or they act one way on camera doesn't mean that's how they're anything like at all in person. Even sometimes it's not even how they look in person. So Luke was as genuine as you could possibly imagine. So the Luke that you watch on a YouTube video is exactly how he was in person. He stayed before the Arnold. He stayed here 3 weeks with James Hollinshead. And he was such a joy to be around. He was in the office all the time. I saw him at the gym every night, and we spent a lot of time with him. Everybody here spent a lot of time with him. To find out that how it all ended for him, that he took his own life, was so incongruous. It literally does not fit with the person that we met and that I know. So it's very hard to get my head around it. I feel very sad. We were able to raise a bunch of money for his family. I feel very sad for his family. I'm not somebody, even though I mentioned heroin addiction and all this other bad stuff that's happened in my life, I'm not somebody that suffers from depression. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around all of it. But I do know just because somebody's smiling and laughing doesn't mean you understand what's going on with them. And this really made me fully grasp that, because I would have loved for him to tell me he wasn't doing good. I would love to have had him talk to me. I would wish that I would have asked him. And I just didn't know to ask. If somebody's on outwards is so positive and fun to be around and laughing and joking, it's very difficult to know. You should be asking them, hey, how are you doing mentally? How are you really doing? It just, but it was sad, very sad. Very, very sad.
Aaron, how many athletes do you guys have now currently?
We have 55 paid athletes. And then in our ambassador program, we have a little over 10,000 tier operators, which are non-paid ambassadors. So it's like micro influencers. It could be somebody who literally just influencing their high school friends and their work friends, or it could be somebody who's a pro bodybuilder who wants to be part of the program and work their way up to becoming an elite athlete that gets a salary. We've had 6 tier operators become elite athletes and get salaries.
That's a lot of numbers. And I think, talking about some of the legacy brands and stuff, I mean, in the industry, I mean, the supplements are I'm not going to say they're all the same, because obviously different products, different flavors, but I mean, obviously proteins and BCAAs have similar ingredients bought from the same people. I guess it comes down to the flavors. One thing I noticed with you guys is that you have exclusive flavors for Canada. Being an American, obviously you guys do a lot of business down there, but then international markets. I mean, I saw that because in a very short period of time, yes, you were in the industry, but I mean, Redcon1 really went from 0 to 60. I've seen brands grow, and I was there when Muscle Tech started. I mean, I've seen a lot of brands go, but they didn't go that fast. I mean, definitely not that fast.
It's been unbelievable.
So, Marky, one thing that I do remember, and it was being around as long as I have, I walked into the Arnold Classic years ago, maybe 2015 or so. I don't know, it was quite some time ago, and I saw this big banner, big photo of you and your old partner. And I'm not going to lie to you. At this time, see, I kind of came from that generation. I used to work for Robert Kennedy and, Gino and Johnny Fitness and those guys in the bodybuilding world. And it was kind of humble. I mean, they're this humble. But it seemed like you were fuck this. You're I'm going to fucking do, I'm just going to be this guy. Fuck, if you like it or you don't like it. Because I remember looking going, who are these fucking guys? Why, what's going on here? How is this, selling supplements? What made you do that? Did you get flack from people? Am I the only guy who thought this?
No. So what you're talking about, I think it was the 2015 Olympia. So what happened, the real story behind it is that they had, I don't know if I'll get in trouble saying it, but at this point, screw it, right? So AMI sells this property, right, on the front of the expo hall, the Las Vegas Expo Hall. And so they, at the time we were doing advertising with them, to some degree, maybe 2 pages a month or something, not huge. We're doing some, enough till they came, and we had a big booth also. We had a really nice booth at that show. So they came to me and said, hey, we cannot sell this space. So we got all Max, we had somebody else, and we can't have an empty space. It won't work. Will you buy the space? And so they offered it for $60,000. And I said, you guys are crazy. Absolutely not. I was like, absolutely not. No way. And so they came back around about a month before, okay, what about $30,000? And I was like, no way, you're insane. And so they came back a week later and they said 15. And I told them 10 and we'll do it. And so they said, okay, 10. And so we wanted to make the biggest impact with that 10,000, right?
You definitely made impact. I mean, I'm a big believer in obviously in marketing and memories. I mean, there's so many people trying to drive messages home, and there's people who are just out there. And here's the thing: do you have any tips for anyone on social media? I mean,
sure.
Want to say to these guys, because you certainly do it differently.
Well, so for that, right? Just to reverse back to that, we made a big statement, and we had a lot of awareness come from that. We had, believe it or not, it was very profitable because we had international distributors come up to the booth and be like, who the hell are you guys? What's this about? But then on the flip side, there is something to be said. You said about getting flack. I think that if I look back at that, I would never do it now because you grow up, you get older, you get more experience. We did create a lot of negative feelings from some people. There was certainly a large hater contingent that still fuck these guys. Who are these guys to put themselves standing in a Ferrari right there? And they couldn't get around that. And I don't know if it did us a disservice in the long run. So now thinking about Aaron now, I don't think that I would do the same thing. I would still do something cool for $10,000. I'd still take the opportunity, but I don't think that that in my opinion, that kind of lifestyle stuff on your social media So showing private jet, you in front of driving a Lamborghini, so like this. If that's your life and it's part of your life, you probably don't need to put it in people's face, right?
Yeah, whether that's your lifestyle or it's not. And I kind of think there's a difference now with like YouTube, or even like I do watch your social media, and you put like sometimes a ton of videos, and I see all the little dots. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Am I actually going to hang in there? And I think you're smart because you integrate your life. There's your kids, there's your wife, there's your office, your really cool office. And then it's like, oh, here's a promo, here's a plug. We're doing this, we're doing that. And I do tell people I think that's genius because like I have a magazine and it's easy for me to kind of plug things. But I mean, I find sometimes we get in the same routine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's just human nature. I mean, we all get up to kind of the same thing. So it's like when you get on social media, it gets a little bit monotonous. And I think you obviously spice it up and you keep it interesting for people to follow you. I think, like your office, let's talk about this office. This is, I'm fascinated with it because, I think I've been to a lot of different sports nutrition, a lot of supplement companies buildings. And I remember back in the day going to Physogen. And if you remember Physogen and those guys back at the time, they were making a lot of money. They're pretty big. And I walked in, it was somewhere in Florida or wherever it was, like a little unit. It wasn't anything too impressive. They're making lots of money. And then you've got companies like BSN, obviously, who had like, office towers and Muscle Tech just down the street from me.
BSN is right next door. Yeah.
You're close to BSN. Yeah. I mean, that's
walking distance.
Beautiful area. I'm literally actually walking distance from Iovate, funny enough.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
They have a nice office, right?
Oh, they have a beautiful tower. I mean, it's their own building. And I mean, there's not too many companies that actually even have their own building. They just take, a unit somewhere and all that. And so, yeah, tell us, how big is your space?
Yeah, so I have one of those rare ones that have their own building. And so the building is 80,000 square feet and it's 3 stories. The warehouse portion is 50,000 square feet of 32-foot clear warehouse space. And it can hold 8,000 pallet racks. So it's really racked out well and well thought out. And then we have on the 3rd floor where I'm at now, it took a while to build it all out and move up here. It's been a process. And the only reason I got this place, it's an interesting story, is so we don't need this much space. So I have the whole 2nd floor is going to be for content. So we're got a huge green screen wall and infinity walls and track for a moving camera. And it's 10,000 square foot of basically content production space, live studio space. So that is because we wouldn't otherwise need it. And to be honest, we thought about renting it out. After really considering that, we decided that it would almost be more trouble than it's worth. So the only reason we got this space, such a funny, crazy story, all that was available here when we went was one part of the warehouse, which was 30,000 square foot, and the ceilings are very high. Yeah. So when I saw it, that was all that was on the internet for rent. And I got a tour with the owner's girlfriend. The owner is 94, and the girlfriend is young girlfriend. She's 82. And so she'd given us a tour of the warehouse, and man, the warehouse was beautiful. It was perfect. And we had just come to the conclusion that we wouldn't be able to have our office in the same place as the warehouse. So when I walked around, I was so impressed with the warehouse. Even though my realtor was like, stop being, because I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. Because he was trying to, you want to have your game face on. Yeah, but I couldn't help it. And so she's like, oh, I'm so happy you're excited. She's like, would you want any other space? And so I was like, well, is there more space? And she goes, yeah, well, we have the office downstairs. And it was 4,000 square feet. And I'm like, this is awesome. I'm like, yeah, I'll take this too. And she goes, okay, well, what about the other side? And I was like, well, is that empty? And she goes, no, there's somebody in there, but they haven't paid rent in months. And we just haven't gotten around to evicting them because my husband and I are just don't want the trouble. I was like, but if you'll take it, then you can have that space too. And I was like, okay. And she's like, and that space has 10,000 square feet of additional warehouse. Did you want that? I'm like, okay, maybe. And then, and so when I said that, she's like, let me show you the top 2 floors. She's like, there's a guy up there that's a call center guy and he's doing medical fraud. And I'd like to get rid of him. And so we went up to the 2nd floor and she kind of like busted in their office and it was a call center. And the guy who was, I guess, running the floor said, everyone turn down their monitors. And then they all flipped the monitors face down. And like everybody was staring at us. And I was like, holy shit, they really are doing medical fraud in here. And the manager tried to run us out. And she's like, no, I own the building. I'm looking around. And so she gave me the tour of the 2nd floor. And so when I left, I told my realtor, offer her the same amount per square foot as we're paying for the warehouse for the whole place. tell her she can kick everybody out. I'll commit to a long-term lease, and I'll take the whole space for the same price that I'm paying for the warehouse, which is a ridiculously, for Boca, I mean, the price I'm paying is obscenely low. And so she agreed, and I couldn't believe it. And until we actually signed the lease and I got the key, I felt like there was going to be some like other thing. I was literally about to drop on my head, but I thought there's no chance that we're going to get this building for this price. So
It's really cool.
it was fortuitous. It was like meant to happen.
No, it's really cool. I mean, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose too, right, in business. And let's talk about some of the situations you may have been where it was like not the best, and
Sure.
what kind of stands out to you in business? What kind of hurt you?
The easy one is that, at Blackstone Labs, we had built, me and my best friend had built this company. It was the 27th on the Inc. 500, number one in health for the year. So it's the 27th fastest growing privately owned company. Things were really going great business wise, and we were on a really upward trajectory. And then we had a huge partnership dispute where essentially the only thing I can compare it to, and thank God, I've never experienced this, but the only thing I can imagine would be like losing a child. I spent 5 years of my life, like literally all day, every day, more than I should have, honestly, too, in terms of like, being away from my children and my wife to make sure that this company would be a huge success. And it was. And so for me to have this partnership dispute, and all this stuff happened suddenly, it was very, at the time, it seemed terrible, but in reality, if it wasn't for the partnership dispute, if it wasn't for that blow up of that relationship, Redcon1 would never have been started. And instead of having a partner that I couldn't seem to get along with and an investor that I didn't like either, now I own all of the company. Eric Hart got sweat equity, and he owns a small part of the company because he's been such a great and valuable asset to me. But I don't have a partner, and the ability to have such a great company with such an awesome team and everything else we talked about, where I don't have somebody that I don't like all the time around me, I can't imagine anything better.
I think too, using social media the way you have, obviously you have to live with, like, you put things out there. It's going to be good and bad, right? Because my personal life, you're not going to find too much of anything out there on social media. If I put any videos, it's kind of very, small. And I guess you understand that. And I like I said to you before, I thought, wow, these guys are a little bit out there, and this is kind of like, a little bit douchey in my opinion. I thought when you started with it, but I also go, listen, I'm a little bit older. Well, not that much older than you, but I've been around the block where I get bodybuilding. People have to understand the bodybuilders, it's all about you. If you're not pushing yourself, if you're not saying you're the fucking best, who else is going to say it? You know what I mean? Like, and you have to have this confidence. Bodybuilders are kind of, some of them can be fragile mentally. I think too. And that's why.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we're in this industry where a lot of it was driven by bodybuilding in the early days, but really at the end of the day, how many actual real bodybuilders ended up owning a supplement company successfully?
Right. Not many at all.
Right. And, then we come along, and I think you have to kind of merge that business thing. And so, like I said, in your case, you took something, you were a little bit very different, and you kind of rode the wave. And then obviously when it comes to marketing, you took it up a notch. And I tell people, I'm like, just do your own thing, because you're not Aaron Singerman. You're not doing what he does. You know what I mean? So how can you mimic that? You could copy the products, and you could try and copy. I'm sure you've had a lot of knockoff brands.
Oh, sure.
Probably try knockoff names and what you do and all this stuff. So,
and Terry, that doesn't make any difference either, because it's like, just because Total War, the ingredients are right there on the back. You can literally look on the back and copy it word for word, have every ingredient and stand them out, but it won't be Total War. It's like my wife, if I bring her home a purse and it says Chanel on it, she's going to love it way more than if it's a purse I bought at Target, right? Even if they look the same.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's because Chanel is a big brand that has value attached to it. And that's the same thing that we've been able to do here.
So I'm kind of curious, what do you think about the Olympia this year? Now, obviously with COVID, it's destroyed a lot of shows. And you were at the Arnold right before, I guess, because everything closed right after that. Actually, how was that? Let's talk about that first. How was that?
Weird. Really, really weird. The Arnold Expo had been closed, and I was sponsoring the webcast as I had the last few years. And I had decided after the last webcast that that I didn't really like doing it anymore. Not that I didn't like being a sponsor, but I personally didn't like doing it. It's a lot more work than people think. I thought that because of my old days with Dave Palumbo and hosting the contest, I figured I would love it. It would be nostalgic. And it actually was a really pretty arduous, it was not an easy thing. You're backstage, you need to be on, you're there for the entire show from the beginning till the last minute at the end. Then you do wrap ups and everything else. So I wasn't going to do it. But then when I found out everything that was going on and that they weren't going to allow people to watch the show or be at the expo, I determined that now it's even more important webcast, because everybody is going to be watching the webcast, and it brought additional attention. So I decided to go myself and do it myself with Luke and Bob Ciccarello, and going and being at the Arnold during the time of the Arnold where there's no fans there was really, really weird. We walked through the expo hall, and the beginning of the setup had already been done for a lot of people. The booth spaces were dedicated, and you walk around this empty hall that has the dedicated spots. And then you walk the streets of Columbus, and nobody's there really. Going to the actual prejudging, I was one of maybe 100 people watching the Arnold prejudging, which is so weird compared to what the Arnold's like. It's pandemonium.
I couldn't imagine being in Columbus with
very weird,
barely anyone, right? I mean,
very weird. And for the night show, there's probably about 150 maybe or so people. And, Arnold's up there on stage talking and addressing this very, very small group of people. And it was very, very surreal, very, very weird. I'm extremely happy that I went because it is a monumental show. I mean, it was literally right before all the craziness broke out. And to be honest with you, being there, everybody was like, these guys are crazy. I cannot believe this got shut down. It's such bullshit. There's nothing even happening. Nobody's, there's at the time there was I want to say there was 10 cases or something in all of Ohio. And they're you're shutting down this with 10 cases. I mean, this is nothing. And but Arnold knew. Arnold wasn't shaking anybody's hand when he came up to do the interview. He was staying away from everybody. He probably got the heads up, but he was taking it seriously for sure. Yeah. But I'm really glad I went. And obviously, I love Arnold. I love the Warmers and all the team they have over there. So I'll be back again next year, and hopefully we'll be back to normal, where we'll be able to be.
That's gotta be really cool. Someone like yourself, you start off from the bottom, really, right? Because we work with Dave, and you were covering this stuff and all that, and then to be on there and being talking to Arnold and working. I think that's pretty amazing, and in a short period of time, really. I mean, it's not like it's been a long time that you've been in the supplement.
Oh, it's all that kind of stuff. To me, I tried, like what you just said. I try to take a step back, and think about things like that, because sometimes it gets lost on me because I'm so focused on the future and what I want to achieve that I don't take enough time to step back and be like, how the hell did I get here? How did this happen? Because I was Dave Palumbo's lackey, literally.
You got to start somewhere, right? Yeah, no, you got to start somewhere. I mean, I worked for Robert Kennedy I was his right-hand guy. I was 22 to almost 30, and I would do whatever Bob wanted me to do. I mean, I don't know, that was it. I think if you're into it, I wasn't really into bodybuilding per se. I liked it, but I certainly was into the business and was interesting. And then I think if you kind of have that journalistic ability, if you're interested in things, if you're interested in history and how things work, you're going to be fascinated and learning how people do things, right? So what do you think is going to happen with the Olympia?
So I'm friends with Dan Solomon. He's like a family friend. I've known Dan for well over a decade, and he lives close by. And I've always been part of everything he's been doing, from digital muscle to stuff in the past. And so I'm very happy that Dan took over Olympia. I thought Robin Cheng was a terrible, terrible promoter, maybe the worst of all time in our industry. He was terrible. He would not promote the actual show that he's promoting. I don't understand. But regardless, he actually put on a good show, but being a promoter is the wrong title. He should have been the Olympia operator or something. But anyway, so I'm happy for Dan. I think that's great for the sport, great for the Olympia. And then I'm also extremely happy that Jake Wood, who's a fan of bodybuilding, bought the Olympia. I feel sad for him that he bought it at a time that,
the best time. Yeah.
Yeah. He bought it at an inopportune time where if he would have bought it right now, he probably could have got it for pennies on the dollar. But I'm glad he did, because he's somebody who's not just looking at the dollars and cents of the show. And that's, I feel the big problem when it got purchased by AMI and Pecker, is it became a financial thing versus a passion and love thing,
Well, I've heard, I mean, I was always on the other side against AMI and these guys when I worked at Muscle Mag doing my own, that's the other side, I just did my own thing. And I heard the tactics. And here's the thing, let's talk about magazines, because a lot, I listen, I've been doing this for quite some time. Print certainly is different than it was years ago, but there's a lot of bullshit out there where people say things. It's because, and I'll be quite frank, it's a lot of the fucking guys who run these magazines and do this shit run a lot of old content. They died because they didn't do anything new. No one worked at doing anything new, and you can't fuck around with the readers. The readers will know. You can't sit there and pull out Jay Cutler's workout from 10 years ago and say this is groundbreaking. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And I'll say, I'll toot my own horn here at Inside Fitness, is that we're always trying to do things that are a little bit different. We have an article going on in the next issue on actual microdosing. You know, we're going to talk about stuff. It's maybe not exactly fitness related, but there's health, there's certain topics. And I think magazines have to like adapt to times. And you talk about content creation. Here's my opinion. I mean, back in the day, you started Muscle Tech, Twin Lab, a lot of these brands, Cybergenics, and they bought these advertising. It was actually very easy. It wasn't hard. You would go to GNC and say, I'm going to buy all these ads in Muscle Mag. Oh, okay, you're going to do that? We'll give you a PO. And it was easy. You would just deal with one magazine. You kind of had to, and back in the day, I had this power position where you're like, oh, the back cover, let's see, ProLab, maybe you, because it helped dictate power in the industry, just like when, BB.com had rankings and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So I think magazines certainly have changed, but I think there's a lot more work for brands. And when you talk about a whole floor about content, you're not like, before was marketing people where we had like a, Lee Priest on a whatever bottle doing this stuff. Now you're talking about actually writing everything, videotaping everything.
Yeah.
And then what people don't really see is probably the master chart of how things link together. Because you can't just give out free hoodies or something and not have some kind of value or some kind of payoff. So I think it's remarkable. And I would love to get you on a podcast with a couple of your peers in the industry and talk a little bit about marketing specific, you know what I mean? I mean, there's some things that people, you could probably just teach them a little bit. And I think you've gotten to that point where it's admirable because, like I said, it's very, very hard. Every day there's a new company. People don't realize this. There's every day. When I started, there was a couple hundred here and there, and now there's probably thousands. So to actually penetrate and get through, you're obviously doing something right. Kudos to you and your team. I know it's not just you; there's a whole bunch of you.
Oh yeah, it's not just me. I will tell you that that's the one thing that's really changed over the years. So because we talked about Blackstone, at Blackstone, I was the driving force in almost every department. In terms of I wasn't doing the art and I didn't design the website, but I was overseeing label design. I was overdoing label compliancy. I was ordering all the labels. I was ordering all the products. I was handling QuickBooks. I was sending off all the money. I'm literally handling the accounting. I was handling the legal. I literally did everything. So. And not that I didn't have bright people there too, but I was really, really involved in almost every aspect of the business. I mean, all of the accounts, large accounts I dealt with, all the international business. Here, I've been really lucky and fortunate to find a lot of really great people. So now when people go, well, or give me the credit, reality, I probably make 1% of the good decisions with me. Because I have 125 people here. In the marketing department, we have 60 very smart people who are all kicking ass. And now I'm more of a coach. And maybe more of a deciding factor. So maybe we're all sitting in the room and everybody gives their good idea, and I may be the one who picks the good idea, but the good idea is almost never mine.
Yeah, no, I get it. That makes a lot of sense. Now, you said there's 60 people?
Yeah.
60. That's a lot of people in marketing. I mean, people have to put this in perspective. I mean, there would be in some of these companies probably 30 or 40 people. I mean, at one point, I even think Nutrex probably had like 5 or 6 people in the whole company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have 6 people.
You can't do it that way, right? You can't. So that's the thing is, and that's a good thing for young entrepreneurs or business owners coming up is you have to be honest with yourself. There's no way 6 people could run a company that's anywhere near the size of mine and do it well. Because like we just talked about me doing at Blackstone, there's absolutely no way I'm going to do the accounting better than my accounting department. I have we have 3 people in our in-house accounting department. So, we're dealing with contracts. I'm not a lawyer, but I was reading and doing all the contracts. I was writing contracts for athletes. We have 2 in-house lawyers. So there's no way to do everything as good as the person that's their job, especially if I'm building.
Yeah.
What have you seen? Like going back to the marketing, we've been around probably the same amount of time. I think we're the same age, and I used to post on the boards back in the day, get big, muscle mayhem, all that.
With a fake name though, Costa, not a real name.
A few of the fake names. But what do you like about what's changed in the industry, and what don't you like? Like, you see guys that maybe back then wouldn't have made it, but you see guys like Nick Strength and Power has hundreds of thousands of views and makes a full living, and that wouldn't be someone who would have made it 10 years ago. But if anyone with a camera or social media account can do it these days, what do you like and what don't you like about what's changed in the industry?
Well, I mean, you mentioned Nick. I think because Nick works, I mean, he's sponsored by Redcon and everything. And I think that somebody like Nick, it's awesome that somebody can do that because you're right. Back in the day, there was no way for me coming into the industry to just there was no option to do that. You needed to have credibility. You need to have people behind you. You need to have accomplishments. And so you can say that both ways. Somebody like, and I'm not saying Bob Chiccarello said anything, but I know we worked together on the Arnold Whitehouse before, but let's say somebody like Bob Chiccarello, he's a voice of Olympia, he was a pro bodybuilder, all this. And yet Nick Strength and Power is far, far, far more popular and better known. So like the justice of it doesn't seem like it weighs out. Here's Bob has all these accomplishments, all this, and yet he's less popular than Nick. Now, in one way, that's fantastic because Nick has an opportunity to gain market share and become a personality. On the other side, and this of course is not about Nick again, just like it's not Bob didn't say anything about Nick, is that you could say, well, what the hell does he know? How is he able to be the authority figure? He has no credibility. It's like somebody, if I wanted to tell you I'm a great lawyer, but I've never been to law school, that may be true, but that doesn't really compute. So I love that there's you have access and ability to reach all these people. I love that back when I was a kid, to be able to go and interact with a pro bodybuilder, you need to go to their seminar and pay $20. So Mike Matarazzo, to meet him, I paid $20. I waited in line. I listened to him, got to shake his hand, take a picture. In 1996. Now anybody can reach out. Now the bad part of that is also anybody can reach out. And you have people on the internet that are morons and they may be searching you out. We've always had this phenomenon in bodybuilding, the hater fan. So you go to get big and people will have 10,000 posts and all of their posts are bad. And I always in my mind was like, well, if I hate, I'm not a sports fan, a traditional sports fan, not that I don't like it, but you will never find me going and posting on a bulletin board about football. I don't follow football. I don't care about football. I don't give a shit about any of these guys, right? That's not part of my thinking or nothing I'm interested in yet. In bodybuilding, you have people that will go to the boards and spend hours and hours of time focusing on something that they seemingly don't like, don't care for, don't like the guys, don't like the sport, think that it's gay, think they're stupid, all this stuff. Yet they're on there doing this. And so back in the day, you'd only find those people on Get Big. So when I go to Get Big, I'd be like, well, I'm expecting to see these guys who are going to be doing this. But now, because of the proliferation of all these social media outlets, there's everywhere you go, you have idiots now. And talking about politics, talking about religion, talking about race. They don't know shit about any of this, but they're happy to give you their opinion. And then even worse, they're people that you never talk to and never interact with are happy to tell you you're wrong when you say your opinion, or say anything they disagree with. I have lots of people that follow me that I'm friends with from years ago or high school friends. And I don't hear anything from them unless I post something that they disagree with. And that's when I'll hear something from them. So there's a great thing about social media. You're able to reach all these people. It's also terrible because you can be an idiot and be all thought of as, an expert or give your opinion to anybody with the same amount of credibility.
I think you're right there. Sometimes it's people with the loudest voice, or they try to, but I also do see now people are starting to tune out, like I said, the bullshitters, you know what I mean? There was brands like Shreds and there was all these things going on. And I'm not even saying whatever they were doing. It's just the way they were marketing it and stuff. It's not transparent. And then the people who actually say they're transparent are not being transparent. I mean, it's just, there's so many things behind the scenes, and people don't really, I think, realize it. And now, they're hopefully getting in tune with, there is a reason why there's credibility. There are reasons why certain, media sources or certain people, I've got kids, I always ask them, where did you read that? My oldest daughter reads stuff on Snapchat, for crying out loud. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's not exactly the New York Times. You know what I mean? And
I do that with my mother.
My mother will. New York Times. Let's get
and you have to read. I think nowadays you got to be very careful because there's even like photos you'll get. So, like I'll get a video of some like maybe dog, like jacked up dog. I'm like, is this real dog or is this actually Photoshop? You know what I mean? Like, and it looks so real now because when we were younger, we would kind of know it was fake or whatever. I mean,
you can never
I'll tell you guys a funny story. When I started at Muscle Mag, I remember walking in and Johnny Fitness was they were doing a cover of Arnold. And, you know, I was 22 and back then it was X-Acto knives. He used to do shit with X-Acto knives and markers on body. So there would be like his photo of him and he would like cut it up and actually literally paste. It was crazy. And I remember seeing 50 dots, like 50 things on Arnold's body for this cover. I go, holy shit, what? Are you telling me that you guys have doctored this much of this photo? You know, and it was...
Arnold. If you're doctoring Arnold, we're all in trouble.
But it was stuff that, you know what, honestly, it wasn't even stuff where it was more to fuck around with things. You know what I mean? It was like colors of stuff. They did this, that, little, you know, Gino was very much, you know, into it. And it was very interesting to see how it kind of transformed, you know. Aaron, I spent quite some time here talking to you. I think we could talk all day, especially with the marketing stuff. You know, I like I said, I appreciate the time getting on here and hopefully we can get you back on here. Maybe get Jury. It'd be good to get Jury's on here when he's not.
Oh yeah, we have to give a shout out. Hold on, before we go. Peak Performance. Jury is a great guy. They carry the Redcon1 products in Canada. They've been a really great partner. And I remember when we first started talking, and he told me the estimates he thought he could do in revenue and sales. And I told him, you need to do a lot more than that. And he has. He has went far past what he expected to be able to do, and has been a great partner, and been on the up and up with me the whole time, and told me what he can do, what he can't do. He even underestimated, like I said, what he thought he could do. And so I appreciate the partnership. In sports supplements, unfortunately, it's not full of only good people. You have a lot of people in this industry that are not so good, and they don't do what they say they're going to do or when they say they're going to do it. And he is certainly on that plus.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great partnership there. Obviously, you know, you need the right people in all these different countries. Jury's and his team are very committed to, I mean, pushing the brands that they have. And he's told me it's always been a pleasure working with you guys. You guys are very sales focused. You know, you guys want to make things happen. And I think that's a key thing, right? I mean, you gotta want to make people to make money and create and build. And yeah, shout out to those guys for sure. Last question to you're a wrestling fan. Your biggest, who's your favorite wrestler?
My favorite wrestler now is Adam Shearer, of course, Braun Strowman.
Okay, but all time, who's your favorite wrestler?
Oh, all time back in the day. So back in the day, you know, was Bill Goldberg, and because he was a Jewish guy and had huge traps, and that was that sold me.
No, it's so Goldberg. And Costa is a big wrestling fan. He's a huge, where are you, Hogan?
I'm a Hogan guy, but, you know, we've done, because Joe Bazooka Joe is friends with Goldberg, so we've met him a few times. Great guy, and he's just a beast. Cool.
I'll tell you what.
Just for you, Aaron, is I know you guys do a lot of great work in the community and charity work. What are you guys working on now? Are you raising any money? I know you guys do stuff.
Yeah. So I mentioned in the beginning that we're a purpose-driven company, and we've basically every month we've given money to one or several military-based charities. And initially we didn't talk about it. And I always thought, you know, kind of like we were talking about before about being so loud and like, you know, being kind of like douchey and stuff. I always felt like that I didn't want to do that with this company. I wanted to make sure that people got to know who I am, who our company is, the beliefs of the company.
Yeah.
So we didn't make a big deal about it initially. I felt like I've always heard like you should give in silence, because the reason shouldn't be to get attention for giving. And then, you know, I was told by somebody smarter than me that if you want to generate more money to give, then you need to bring attention to it, because people will support the brand in a larger way, because they know that they're not just getting cool supplements at a good price, they're actually helping to support an important cause. And so as soon as we kind of flipped the switch on that in about the beginning of 18, things started really ramping up. And so we made a bigger deal about giving. We've given to, you know, everything from the Navy SEAL Foundation. We donated $70,000 the month before last to the Warrior Health Foundation, which provides hormone replacement therapy, vitamin therapy, and overall wellness to our special forces operators when they get out. So a lot of them have sustained brain injury, a traumatic brain injury from sustained combat, and it affects the ability to produce hormones. To get these alpha male guys who are Delta Force or SEAL Team 6 that have no testosterone. And it causes depression, obviously changes their body. And a lot of times it causes drug addiction and suicide. as secondary or tertiary effects of having, brain injury and low hormones. We've done a lot of cool stuff. So one of the things we're doing, right, I'm actually wearing the Redcon1 Foundation shirt. The Redcon1 Foundation shirt, the Redcon1 Foundation is donating to the Murph Challenge. So Murph Challenge is going to be this weekend. It's the 15th anniversary of Operation Red Wings, where Marcus Luttrell was the lone survivor. If you saw the movie with Mark Wahlberg, he was rescued. There was a rescue mission called Operation Red Wings, where it was the biggest loss of life at the time of special forces. It was Night Stalkers and Navy SEALs crashed on the way. And so trying to rescue them. And Michael Murphy gave his life and won the Medal of Honor for going above. So he went to the top of the hill to make contact with the cell phone to get help for his guys. And he gave up his life, chose to give up his life basically by going up there and making a call knowing that he wasn't going to survive. So every year they do the Murph, usually also at Memorial Day, but then this same day every year for the last 15 years, they do his favorite workout, which is the Murph. And so we're hosting the official one at the Redcon1 gym. We got about 70 Navy SEALs flying out. We were going to have Chris Pratt and Mark Wahlberg and a bunch of other major stars, but as you can imagine, in South Florida, the numbers are going up and people are a little more cautious about coming down here. So we're giving $10,000 at the event to the Murph, to the people in the Murph, but we're also going to be raising money by selling shirts there, raising money by everybody who's actually competing in the normal Murph, not the private event, will be donating $30, which will also go to the foundation for his father, Dan Murphy, who runs the foundation. And all this money is donated to veteran causes. So
that's awesome, man. That's really, that's really cool. And that is something different than what other people are doing in the industry. I mean, good for you and supporting. We didn't even talk about the Redcon1 gym. I mean, like I said, we could go on forever, and I would love to hear, more about that. Maybe so we'll do this again. But it's in Boca. Is that where it's located?
Yeah, the Redcon1 gym is about I would say it's about half a mile from the office, from our building.
How big is it?
What's that?
How big is it?
18,800 square feet. So it's a public facility. We have a little less than 800 members right now, and it's awesome, man. It's like as great as the building is. You would I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but the gym is so damn cool that I would never ever in a million years spent this much money to make the gym nice. Somebody else. I was a member at the gym, and they spent $5 million building out this crazy gym, and then the whole plan was to make it a personal trainer gym only, where you have to have a trainer to work out at the gym. And, the business plan just failed, basically. Yeah. And they were able, the owner of that gym said, hey, would you buy it? And I told him no way. And we went back and forth for a while, and he ended up giving me the keys to assume the liability of the building, because he had 3 years left on the lease. So I got the whole gym for nothing, literally nothing. And then went about buying all the best equipment over the years that I've been interested in.
I saw some of the equipment. I've been to so many gyms over the years. I've owned a couple of gyms, and I saw you listed some, I think yesterday. So it was Italian or European equipment that you have in there.
We have a deal with them.
Yeah, like it's amazing. I can't wait to travel again and get down there. I can guarantee you, I will certainly hit you up, because I'd love to come in and check it out. I mean,
I'd love to give you the grand tour. I would, and then especially now, since you said it, where all the gyms owning the gym as being kind of a connoisseur gyms, I can't wait to hear your opinion on it, because I honestly think that it is one of the better gyms in the world. Now there's places like Oxygen that I've been to in Kuwait, which are like, there's nothing like that in America, but in terms of the atmosphere, the type of people that are in there, the equipment, I don't think that I can think of any places that I've been, other than obviously like Gold's Gym Venice Beach is historic, but like the equipment there in the gym is not like that great.
It has to have a vibe, right? Like the first time I went to Gold's Gym in Venice, I went with Craig Titus.
Oh, you lived with him? I didn't know that.
That's another podcast altogether.
Podcast. He just got out of jail his first time, and I was at Max Muscle, and he wanted to go work. I wanted to work out. I'm like, I'll go to So, but the vibe at the Mecca was, great. Then going up to Bev Francis' gym up in New York. I mean, Steve's gym is just like, that's probably like one of the most like hardcore. Oh yeah. Like that's a real gym, and then the vibe. So I mean, I from what I could see, it looks obviously really cool. Looks pretty. I mean, it looks like kind of that Florida Miami almost
nightclub. I mean, it looks like a nightclub, honestly. And the lighting is very unique.
But I think doing the events, I mean, that's the cool thing is doing all these events, having people come in there. It's like supporting the community. You know what I mean? Like that's the one thing. We have battle arts up here in Mississauga. One of my business partners was actually a wrestler. He was on Monday Night Raw and all that, WWE. And while he was on TV, he wanted to open up a wrestling gym. And it's definitely got its own vibe. I mean, it's really cool. It's got, wrestling is a whole nother ball game. We should some articles. But yeah, I appreciate, like I said, the time and all the best to you and moving forward. Hopefully we'll, like I said, get Juries on here and do another podcast for sure.
That'd be great.
All right.
That'd be great.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.